he moved toward her slowly, cautiously, as though one wrong step might shatter what fragile ground they'd managed to find in the night. She didn't turn, didn't flinch, just stood there with the morning light painting the side of her face. In soft gold, his voice was barely a breath behind her. "Amara, if you ever want me to stay, not just here, but really stay, you won't have to ask." She didn't respond, not with words. But after a moment, her fingers curled tighter into the robe's fabric, like she was holding herself together with both hands. Nathan took the silence for what it was. Not rejection, not acceptance. Just a boundary. One he wouldn't cross, so he stepped back, walked past her with the same quiet she'd once left him in at the door. He paused, hand on the handle. "You were never just a casualty," he said. "You were the truth they were scared of. Still are." And then, gently, he opened the door and left it later that day. The hallway outside the safe house was empty when Amara stepped out. The echo of her heels on the old floorboards was the only sound, steady, grounded. She had showered, dressed, tied her hair back, not like armor, but like intention. She carried a folder under one arm. Inside it, documentation, evidence, names. She was no longer afraid to say out loud, downstairs, Briggs was waiting. Sitting on a weathered bench with 2 phones and a briefcase by his feet. When he saw her, he stood. "You look like hell," he said gruffly. She gave a dry, humorless smile. "That's funny." "I feel like a revolution." He didn't smile back, just nodded toward the folder. "That everything." "Oh," she said. "It's just the beginning." Briggs hesitated. "To go through with this, you don't get to disappear again. They'll come at you, smear you, maybe worse." Amara walked past him and out into the morning light. "Let them come," she said. "They tried to erase me before, I let them. This time I'll write the story myself." Hours later, the interview room, the camera light turned red, taught she was live. Across the country, faces turned to the screens, some curious, some angry, some afraid. The anchor sat across from her, stiff with corporate discomfort. But Amara was steady. Her voice didn't shake. "I was part of Project Lucent," she said. "A covert intelligence operation that used vulnerable civilians under the guise of national security. I wasn't a threat. I was 17. Asked questions. They called that dangerous." She spoke names, showed records, read from transcripts she wasn't supposed to have. She didn't cry, didn't break. By the end of it, the silence in the studio was so thick. You could feel the pulse of it in your ribs. The anchor cleared her throat, barely composed. "Why speak now?" Amara looked directly into the camera, Kate, into every living room, office, and corner of the internet watching. "Because I'm done surviving in silence. And I'm not the only one." Inside the studio, nightfall, Nathan waited. Across the street, hands in his coat pockets, the cold barely touching him. When she walked out, cameras flashed from a distance, but she didn't rush. She walked like a woman who had buried fear and planted fire in its place. She crossed two. Him stopped just short. Their eyes met. "I didn't know if you'd come," she said. "I didn't know if I'd be allowed. Who would stop you?" He gave a dry smile. "You?" Her mouth twitched, almost a smile. Then she looked at the street, the chaos behind. They'll spin it. They'll say I lied or that I'm unstable. Let them try," he said. "The whole country saw you tonight. You didn't burn alone." For a long moment, they stood in the glow of the street lamp. Then Amara said, quietly, "Walk with me." Nathan fell into step beside her, not leading, not chasing, just their dot, and for the first time in years, Amara didn't feel like she was running anymore 2 days later. Somewhere in DCTHE news cycle had erupted. Amara's name trended for 48 hours straight. Footage of her calm, unwavering testimony played on every channel, edited, dissected, denied. Government spokespeople scrambled. Some outright dismissed her as a disgruntled former operative. Others refused comment entirely. But not everyone was silent. Whistleblowers emerged one by one. Some anonymous, others brave enough to step forward. Her story had opened a door no one could close again. Inside, a brownstone apartment. Night Nathan watched the coverage from a battered couch, a coffee gone cold beside him. He hadn't heard from Amara since. The interview, no texts, no calls. She had vanished into strategy mode, surrounded by legal teams, activists, and reporters. And he didn't push. He knew now if he wanted to be someone who stayed, he had to let her be. Still, that didn't stop the ache. Not from missing her. Not from worry. Then his phone buzzed. Unknown number, rooftop, 10 minutes. You know the one? His heart slammed once. Hard dot, he was out the door before his coffee even stopped steaming. The rooftop to 9:47 p.m. She was already there, wrapped in a black coat. Hair pulled back, the wind playing with loose strands. The city stretched beneath them, restless and glowing. Her back was to him, but she didn't startle when he approached. "I thought maybe you were done with rooftops," said quietly. Amara turned, her face calm but tired, exhausted in the way people are when they've handed over pieces of themselves to something bigger. "They still help me breathe," she said. He stepped closer, not too close. Just near enough for her to lean if she wanted to. She looked at him then. And for a second, the armor dropped. "I lost a friend today," she murmured. "One of the only ones who knew what they did to me and stayed anyway. She called this morning, said she couldn't risk being associated. Her husband's career, her kids." She apologized. Nathan's expression darkened. "She shouldn't have to choose between the truth and safety." "No," Amara agreed, but she did. A long silence. Then he asked, "Are you okay?" She almost laughed, but it broke somewhere in her throat. "You keep asking me that? I'll keep asking until the answer changes." She met his gaze, really met it. "I'm not okay," she whispered. "But I'm not alone. That's new." Nathan's jaw clenched. He stepped forward, hesitated, then lifted a hand to her cheek. She didn't pull away. Her eyes closed. "I want to be your safe place," he said. "Even when the world burns." She opened her eyes. "You might have to be," she whispered. "Because this is just the beginning, Nathan. They're going to try to destroy me. Can feel it coming." "Then let it come," he said. "Let them try." She studied him, not with doubt, but with a weariness carved deep. "People like me don't survive this." "Then let's make history," he said softly. "Let's survive it loud." For the first time in days, a smile touched her lips, small but real. She leaned forward, resting her forehead against his chest. Just for a moment. Not surrender, just ... Breath, and in the quiet that followed, as sirens echoed far below, and cameras spun narratives they couldn't control, Amara whispered into the space between them, "They're going to learn my name." Nathan's hand pressed gently against her back. "They already have." 3 days later, federal courthouse. Washington, D.C. Steps outside the courthouse were swarming. Protesters, reporters, security. Agents in dark suits with unreadable eyes. The metal barricades barely held the wave of people shouting her. Named some in support, others with rage burning through their throats. Inside the courthouse, it was ice-cold marble. Cold stares. Cold silence. Amara sat at the long table beside her attorney, hands clasped in her lap.
Oh.
The prosecution team across from them shifted papers, whispered, postured. They were building a case against her now for breach of national security, because she told the truth, because she remembered everything. Nathan was in the gallery. He hadn't said much since the rooftop, but he'd been there. At every hearing, every meeting, every night when the panic refused to let her sleep, the judge entered. "All rise." Amara stood with the rest of them, not with fear. With fire, later. That night, safe house apartment, she couldn't breathe. The hearing had gone worse than expected. The prosecution introduced sealed documents, coded language, men in uniforms who denied everything she'd lived through. They called her unreliable, emotionally unstable. They said she couldn't be trusted because she had been broken. She stood in the tiny bathroom now, gripping the sink. Her reflection didn't look like a warrior or a hero or a villain, just a woman, tired, braced. Nathan's voice floated in from the other room. You don't have to face them alone. She didn't answer a moment later. The door creaked open. He didn't speak right away, just walked in, stood behind her, reflected in the mirror. His presence was quiet, not demanding. You were incredible today, he said finally. I lost. You rattled the walls. And they're trying to contain the cracks. She looked down. Nathan stepped closer. His hands hovered near her arms, unsure. I don't need comfort, she whispered. Then I won't give you comfort, he replied. I'll give you truth. She turned toward him slowly. Truth is what got me here. No, he said, voice steady. The lie they told about you is what got you here. Truth is what's going to burn them down. She stared at him then. Without thinking, she reached for his shirt, grabbed a fistful of fabric and pulled him close. Their foreheads touched. I'm so angry, she whispered. I want to rip it all apart. Then do it. I'll help. Her breathing trembled against his skin. She didn't cry, but he held her like she might hours later. A dark office downtown in a private building far from the media, far from the cameras, far from the courts. A group of men sat in a silent room, screens displayed. Footage of Amara, audio feeds, transcripts. She's gaining traction. Too much traction. A silence. Then one man, the oldest face, like stone, spoke. Activate the file. The others looked up. You're sure? She wants a war, the old man said. Let's give her one. A button was pressed, a file decrypted, and somewhere far away, a sleeping operative's phone buzzed. Back at the safe house, 241. A.M. Amara stirred. Something in the air shifted. She sat up, heart racing. Her hand reached for the drawer beside her, felt the cold grip of the pistol she hadn't needed in years. Nathan was still asleep beside her. Then banged a sharp crack of sound outside. Not a gunshot, a door. A boot. She was already on her feet. Nathan. She hissed. His eyes flew open. Another sound. Closer. She reached the window, pulled back the curtain. Black SUVs. No markings. Nathan, get up now. He didn't ask. Just moved. The war wasn't waiting anymore. It had arrived. Safe house, seconds. Later, Nathan grabbed the drive from under the floorboard, shoving it into his jacket. Amara had her Glock in hand, eyes scanning the hallway. Back, exit, cell, she whispered. They moved fast. Down the stairwell, 2 flights. Another bang. Closer. Nathan turned. They're breaching. Time. They hit the alley. Black boots. Hit. Pavement behind them. Run. They ran. Bullets cracked through air. One hit the brick inches from Nathan's head. He ducked. Grabbed Amara's hand. They turned a corner, sprinted through back streets. A door ahead, rusted, unmarked. She slammed her shoulder into a tit gave. Dark, empty storage unit. They slid inside. Nathan locked the door behind them. Silence, breathing, tracked. Us, he muttered. Encrypted lines are compromised. They activated something, Amara said, panting. Not surveillance. Not arrest. Then what? She looked at him. Erasure. Capital 26A.M. Julian Cross leaned back in his chair, sleek suit, cold smile. The same man who once served as Nathan's mentor. He watched the footage from the alley, paused on Amara's face. She's not going away, a voice said behind him. Julian's smile didn't fade. No, he said. She's evolving. Close the laptop. Time to remind her who built the system she's trying to burn. Storage unit, sunrise. Nathan stitched the graze on Amara's arm. She winced. No anesthetic. He smirked faintly. Out of stock. She rolled her eyes. Then Nathan paused. Amara continued. He was your handler. He has access. Connections, if they sent cleaners, it's from him. Nathan nodded. Then we go after him. Amara's eyes darkened. No, she said. We expose him. Nathan looked at her. You're thinking of the archive. She nodded. The one place the system forgot to scrub. Nathan stood. Then we go underground. She held his gaze. Then we go to war. The old metro tunnels beneath District 6 hadn't seen a train in years. Power flickered through cracked fluorescence, casting ghostly light on the rails below. Nathan led flashlight low, weapon lower. Amara followed, scanning every echo. They sealed this route after the freight bombings, she murmured. Exactly why it's off the grid. They reached a junction, rusted signage, 3 tunnels. Nathan knelt, ran fingers over the track. Still warm, he said. Amara tensed. Someone's ahead of us. A sound metal against stone. They turned fast, weapons up from the shadows. Emerged a man in gray, hands up, mid-30s, thin, sharp eyes. Keller, Nathan breathed. The man nodded. Didn't think you'd actually come? Do you have access to the archive? Amara asked. Keller tilted his head. I built the failsafe. Nathan stepped closer. Then tell us how to get in. Keller hesitated. Not here. Eyes everywhere. Even down here. Pulled out a small drive and handed it to Amara. Coordinates. Access code. One-time use. What's the catch? She asked. Keller looked straight at Nathan. You'll need to die. Silence. Then Amara. What the hell does that mean? Keller's eyes didn't waver. The archive only unlocks for the dead. Faked, of course. Biosignature death stamp. No turning back. Nathan stared at the drive, then at Amara. I'll do it. She shook her head. Nathan, he cut her off. You've been running long enough? This ends, this gets. Justice then, I do it. Keller stepped back. You have 12 hours. After that, the window closes. He vanished into the tunnel. Amara looked down at the drive. Her hands were shaking. Nathan placed his over hers. If this is the cost, he whispered, then I'm paying it. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She just said, then we make it count. Abandoned medical bay, 3:12 a.m. Sterile lights buzzed faintly above as Nathan lay shirtless on the cold operating table. Electrodes mapped his vitals, and the biometric override sequence blinked red on the monitor beside him. Amara stood over him, gloves on, jaw clenched. You still have time to change your mind. I already made it, he said quietly. You just have to pull the trigger. Literally. She swallowed. You trust me with your life. I've trusted you with worse. A faint smirk tugged at her mouth, then she pressed the injector to his neck. 3 seconds. A hiss. Then his body arched, eyes fluttered. Flatlin. She stared at the monitor. 0 BPM. Dead. Amara moved fast. She placed the override chip into the device and scanned his retinal imprint while the biometric stamp confirmed identity. Nathan R. Ward. Deceased, she didn't breathe until the code flashed green. Access granted. The archive to 5:26 a.m. The entrance wasn't marked. Just an old vault door embedded into the wall beneath an abandoned security building. The biometric death key worked. The door hissed open. Inside, silence. Rows of glass servers, blue light pulsing through miles of stored secrets. Here, every buried scandal, every erased whistleblower, every cover-up was encoded and untouched. Amara stepped in alone. Nathan, heart just restarted 30 minutes earlier, waited 2 blocks away, weak, recovering. A live dot, she uploaded the contents of Julian Cross's operations, names, movements, kill orders, black funds, signed off by the inner council. Her eyes found one file, labeled Operation Glasswing. She clicked up, and there she was. Her mother, young, brave, on camera, speaking about the very corruption Amara had spent her life fleeing. But then a gunshot. A voice whispered, off camera, end the leak. Amara's breath left her body. She downloaded everything 2 hours later. Global broadcast intercept screens around the country lit up. Julian Cross's voice played over hidden footage. Documents streamed in real time. Names, locations, kill counts, secrets. Then Amara's voice. You told us truth was dangerous. That justice was a luxury. But you feared one thing more than exposure. A generation that stopped being afraid of. You. The system crashed, the streets didn't erupt with chaos. They erupted with clarity. Safe house. Dusk Nathan sat on the edge of the bed, still pale. Amara entered, slower now. He looked up. Did it work? She nodded. Everything's out. His lips parted in disbelief. So, ... This is the end. Amara moved to him, cupped his face. No, she said softly. This is just the first time we're not hiding. He let his forehead rest against hers. Outside, the world trembled. Inside, he finally stopped running. 2 hours later, emergency council session. Eerily, a chamber was chaos. Representatives shouted over each other, the flood of leaked data. Having dismantled half their credibility, Julian Cross's seat sat empty, his whereabouts unknown since the breach. Then the screen flickered on .amara.live.in, a plain shirt. Hair tied back, eyes steady. This isn't a coup, she said calmly. It's a reckoning. The system you built wasn't just broken, it was rigged. Against truth. Against the people. Against those like my mother who died trying to warn you. Gasps echoed. Some recognized her face, more recognized her name, Amara. Lean Cross. Daughter of the man they now hunted. Going forward, she continued, every council record will be public. Every resource redistributed. And if any of you resist, know that the people are not afraid of you anymore. She didn't wait for applause. She disconnected. Warehouse outskirts. That night Nathan leaned against the car, arms crossed, watching her from a distance. She approached slowly, wind brushing through her coat. You made your move, he said. She nodded. So did you. You died for this, technically. His lips curved. You were the one who brought me back. A pause. Then Amara said quietly, it's not over. No, Nathan agreed, but it's changed. She studied him for a long breath. Are you staying? I'm not leaving, he said. Not unless you ask me to. She stepped closer, fingertips brushing his. I'm tired of pretending. I don't want someone beside me. She whispered. Nathan took her hand, firm, real. Then let's stop pretending, he said. The weeks that followed were not triumphant. They were tense, raw, and filled with reckoning. Every corner of the city held fragments of what had been broken. Nathan spent his days in legal briefings and closed-door meetings, sitting across from men he once called allies, now exposed for what they were. Amara was everywhere. On factory floors, in community halls, on long walks through forgotten neighborhoods. She listened more than she spoke, and when she did speak, people leaned in like they were hearing the truth for the first time in years at night. When the world quieted, they found each other, not in declarations or promises, but in presence. Nathan would sometimes find her curled on the old leather armchair by the window, documents scattered at her feet. He wouldn't disturb her, just hand her tea and sit nearby, the silence between them laced with something unspoken but safe. One evening, as rain patterned gently against the windows, Amara looked up from a dossier and said, I don't know what this becomes. Nathan met her eyes. Neither do I. But I know I don't want to do it alone, she added. He nodded. Once. Then don't. No flourish. No grand romance. Just the kind of choice you make with both eyes open. And in that strange, uncertain, quiet something unshakable began to take root. Amara stood before the hall packed with community leaders, youth organizers, nurses, teachers, even former factory workers who once believed their voices didn't count. She wore no title, no nameplate, just presence. Behind her, Nathan stood not at a podium, but among the people. Every system that has tried to silence us, Amara said, voice steady, relied on two things, shame and division. Murmurs of agreement, she continued. Was told to hide, to change my name, to erase my past. But I've learned truth doesn't just survive exposure, it ignites. The room was still. Don't mistake this moment for a miracle, she said. It's a match. Now we decide what burns and what rises. A hand rose from the crowd. A woman, elderly, voice cracking with emotion. And what if they come for you again? Amara's answer was simple. They already did. Then she stepped back and nodded toward the young organizer beside her. I'm still standing, but this isn't about me anymore. It's about us. The crowd stirred, then rose. Applause not just for Amara, but for the mirror she held up to their own. Resilience. From the back, Nathan felt something shift. Not in policy, not in polls, but in power. Real power. Born not from fear, but from a truth too loud to bury. 2 days later, Capitol Hill. Behind closed doors, Governor Davis paced the edge of a long mahogany table, his suit crisp, his face drawn. Taut with fury and calculation. She's gained sympathy, barked a lobbyist at his left. Worse momentum. The grassroots are rallying, and the media pivoted. The latest polls put Hale up 3 points. Charles Davis didn't flinch. He turned to the silent man sitting near the end of the table. What about the package? The man nodded once. Ready? But it crosses legal lines, deep ones. Davis's voice was cold. Then bury it in a pack shell. I want every trace pointing away from us. Full psychological profile. Surveillance footage. Dig deeper. If she bought medication in 2016, I want the receipt and the pharmacist's handwriting. Beat, then, and Nathan. We watch. He slips once we strike. Meanwhile, Nathan's townhouse. Evening light falling through tall windows. Amara sat cross-legged on the floor beside a scattering of documents. Press clippings, speaking invitations, letters from women in shelters, teens from rehab, nurses from closed clinics. Nathan sat across. From her, sleeves rolled. You said you wanted to lead this on your terms. Amara looked up at him. I don't want a movement built on my trauma alone. That's what they expect. That's how they contain us. I want this to be about survival that turns into structure, into change. Nathan nodded slowly. Then let's give it a name. She smiled faintly. Something they can't twist. Silence. Then she said it. Let's call it Emberline. Nathan frowned. Why Emberline? It's because we were never ashes, she said quietly. We were embers, waiting a long pause. Then Nathan reached for the nearest folder. Then Emberline starts tonight. Outside, the wind moved through the trees, but the fire had already begun. The Emberline launch wasn't grand. It wasn't televised or polished or fed through handlers. It started in a converted recreation center on the edge of the district. It's the same place where once Amara had passed out flyers no one read. Now, chairs filled fast, folding ones. Broken. Others dragged in from local schools, churches, porches dot the room. Buzz not with spectacle, but hunger. Amara stood in the center. No microphone. Just her voice. No one's coming to save us, she began. But that's not a tragedy. That's an opportunity. She'll let it sit then, because it means we get to save each other. Nods, murmurs, then hands raised. What about funding? A teacher asked. Transparency first, Amara answered. We're opening our books, and every decision we make will be public. We're not building another ladder for the powerful. We're building ground. Another hand. A young man with a faded hoodie. You think this will scare them? A flicker in her gaze. I don't care if it scares them. I care if it replaces them. A pause. Then Nathan stepped forward, clipboard in hand. We're launching pilot clinics. One in the South Side. One near Haddington. Volunteer-led, nurse-supported, crowd-funded. The room shifted, leaned forward. This is real, someone whispered. And then it began. People signed on. Names scribbled in shaky handwriting. Former campaign staffers, grief counselors, ex-janitors, freelance designers, a retired judge, newly licensed nurse, Dot by night's end. Emberline wasn't just a name, it was a pulse, and somewhere across town. In a cold office with high ceilings and low empathy, Governor Davis stared at a report. His hands trembled as he read the headline. They called her broken. Now she builds. He slammed the file shut. End it. I don't care how. The first whisper came from a tabloid blog. Then a late-night radio host. Then a strategically leaked video grainy cut, taken out of context, Amara's voice, clipped and isolated. I don't owe them anything. What followed was a wave of noise. She's arrogant. She's anti-government. She's dangerous. By the end of the week, 3 sponsors pulled out of Emberline's pilot. One clinic opening was delayed. Another vandalized. Nathan watched the newsfeed play out in real time. His jaw clenched. They're spinning everything. They're desperate, Amara replied, not flinching. Still, he could see the tiredness in the corners of her eyes. What can I do? He asked at her silence said more than words. She didn't need comfort. She needed clarity. But when she finally spoke, her voice was hoarse. Don't fix it for me. Just stand where I can see you. And he did. He stood beside her as they held press conferences in church basements and school auditoriums. He stood beside her when a protest turned violent outside City Hall and she refused to be escorted out the back. He stood beside her the night they returned to find their shared apartment ransacked, files scattered, Emberline posters torn, Nathan's old camera shattered on the floor. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring down at what was once her campaign journal, its pages ripped. Nathan knelt beside her, slow and careful. They think if they shake the walls hard enough, you'll run. Not going anywhere, she said. He placed his hand over hers. Then neither am I. The next day, Amara walked into a town hall scheduled to be boycotted. The room was full. Not of donors, not of media, of people, wearing shirts with one word across the chest, enough. 3 days later, subpoena landed on Amara's doorstep. Official. Cold, sealed in a cream envelope. She read it twice, fingers trembling only. Slightly. They're calling it a financial audit, she said, handing it to Nathan. But look at the timing. Look at the scope. Oh. Nathan's eyes scanned the pages. They're going after Emberline's entire donor network. Every clinic, every volunteer payment. They want to freeze our funding. They want to freeze me, Amara said flatly. That night, the apartment was silent. No strategizing. No typing. No late-night emails. Just stillness until Nathan broke it. We could leave. She looked up. I mean it, he said. We disappear. For a few weeks. Let things settle. Go north or somewhere coastal anywhere. But here. Her laugh was quiet and tired. I used to dream about running. You still can. I won't, she said, and her voice held steel. They're trying to make me choose between peace and purpose. She stood, wrapping a blanket tighter around herself. Let them audit. Let them drag me into their hearings. I'll sit there and I'll tell the truth. Every messy, inconvenient piece of it. About how this city failed its people. About how the silence wasn't just policy, was design. Nathan walked to her slowly. She didn't flinch when he touched her arm. I'm not brave like you, he admitted. She turned to face him fully. You are. You just haven't forgiven yourself yet. Their eyes locked. I'm not asking you to save me, she whispered. Just don't disappear when it gets ugly. His voice cracked when he said, I won't. Then he pulled her into his arms, not to protect her, not to shield her, but simply to hold Dot, and in that quiet, she allowed herself for the first time in a long time to lean. Not as a warrior, not as a symbol. Just as a woman choosing not to fight alone.